My name is Sean Kelly, and I have worked with Marina Abramović for almost 3 decades. And today we're sitting down with Marina to talk about a very important work that she made in China with her then professional and personal partner Ulai in 1988, which was the walk along the Great Wall of China, whose title is The Lovers. So Marina, can you tell us how you and Ulai came up with the concept for the walk along the wall in 1988?
It was in time in 1979. We was in Australian desert, and we lived there for almost a year with the 2 Aborigine tribes, and later on our own. And just lying there under the sky in the Australian desert, we thought about the idea that actually the only construction can be seen from the moon is the pyramids made by human hands and the Great Wall of China. And we start thinking and kind of dreaming, what will be if actually we can walk this wall? We can start from the 2 opposite ends and meet in the middle and get married. So this was really the first idea, that how this came in the desert.
So it was actually 9 years earlier that you came up with the idea to make the walk.
9 years, took 9 years then to start getting permissions. This was all different chapter. But before that, for me it was really important, and for Ulai, to study the mythological aspects of the war, because the Great Wall was built not as a defense as everybody's think today, as a defense from the Genghis Khan and intruders from the tribes into China. It was built actually as a kind of almost mythological construction in order to reflect Milky Way on the Earth. So the dragon head was related to the dragon head with the beginning of the wall in the Yellow Sea. It was related to the dragon head in our galaxy. And the dragon tail buried in the desert, it was a dragon tail in the galaxy. So the whole thing was a reflection of Milky Way.
How did you and Ulai physically prepare for this? Because you're walking 2,500 kilometers. It's through very difficult terrain, very different climates.
Around between 8 and 10 hours a day.
8-10 hours a day. You can't stay on the wall. You have to leave the wall every night, go to a village or somewhere you could sleep, come back in the morning. Often you've said that the journey to the wall and from the wall was longer than the time you could walk on the wall.
Yeah.
So it's an enormous amount of physical preparation and mental preparation.
Yeah.
How did you prepare for that? And was the preparation for this different to any other performance?
Yeah, it was different, because this was really pure physical. It was not so much mental exercise, because we have the willpower and want to walk the wall, but it was really the physical preparation. So it was very much to do with the gym. I've been doing aerobics, I've been on trade machine, I've been doing escalations with the elevations, and then go to nature and just do the walks in the nature, but really to physically to create the strengths, and also to figure out the nutrition, the food, to have enough protein that I can deal with that, and also learn as much as I can about Chinese culture and Chinese
And it took you 4.5 months.
To what?
To walk and to meet?
No, 3 months.
Took 3 months?
90 days,
it
exactly.
Took 90 days.
3 months, and because we walk fast. The why you have to walk, my idea was and Ula's idea was that we walk wall 1 year, that we really take time, that we can kind of stroll through the wall and not as a race. But because Chinese, we have to pay per day.
Doing it.
It was so expensive, we have to pay per day, so we have to walk fast.
And everybody always talks about you met in the middle. But did you actually meet in the middle? Did one of you walk further than the other? I know it wasn't a competition, but did you meet more or less in the middle?
Before, just to tell you a few the things that we decide, Ulai and me, it was very important to know who is walking desert and who is walking the mountains. And it happened to be that I have to start from the sea, which is the female element in water.
Right.
And this was the war rise from the sea and goes through all the mountains. And Ulai, as a desert, as a fire, as a male, have to start from the desert. So he actually starts from the desert, and I start from the mountain, and then we meet in the middle. This was the idea. But what happened, I remember the something that I got so angry, and I wrote in my biography, Walking Through the Walls, this detail. The Ulai walking towards me found a really beautiful spot between Taoist and Confucius monastery, which is an incredible photographic opportunity, and he decided on his own, without consulting me, because I could not have any communication at the time, that actually he stopped there and waited for me 3 days till I come there. So I walked 3 days extra in order to meet in this particular photogenic spot. I was furious.
And the idea was that when you met,
there
would be a celebration,
yes,
and that you would get married on the wall. But it didn't work out like that.
It didn't work out. It's for several reasons. So first of all, when we, in this 8 years of waiting for Chinese Wall, our relation was going pretty much towards the end. And when the Chinese finally say yes, we was ending our relationship. And as we never want to give up anything, we say no matter what, I'm going to walk the wall, but this time I'm not going to be married, I'm going to be saying goodbye. And in the meantime, also the Ulai made pregnant the translator, the Chinese translator who was with him at that time. And so this makes even more, dramatic and definite goodbye.
So actually,
which he married after that.
When you met, you, instead of getting married, you were actually ending your relationship both as artists and together who'd worked together for over a decade, and on a personal level. So you actually met to separate. To
separate, and it was so dramatic, it's so difficult, because walk was going not to celebration, but for the separation. So every step of this walk was actually difficult emotionally for me, and knowing that we are ending something which I was thinking would be forever, and didn't happen. And then the news of pregnancy of the translator, he told me right there on the wall.
So this is 1988. There are no cell phones. You can't have communication on the wall, and there aren't people going ahead of you to keep you in touch with each other. So was there any communication during that 3-month period?
Only one note given me by the guide of Ulai saying, walking the Great Wall of China is the easiest thing in the world. And I looked this message, and I was in so much pain. I was going in the mountains, but the wall is a ruin. Only around the city is built up. The rest is just ruins. I was walking on my knees. I was walking on the tips of my fingers, climbing. There was a moment you only have the towers, and the rest was just a broken wall. It was such a heavy thing. I had so much, the injuries and pains, but to make this trip. And he was walking the desert, but this was not his fault. This is how we decided before. It was a reality.
Now, many years later, decades later, 31 years later, looking back on it as a performance in your oeuvre and your long career, which started in the late 60s and early 70s, how do you view the performance of the walk on the wall, The Lovers? I mean, how important is it for you in your career?
This is a very important question for me, because I was very much kind of confused about seeing as a really performance, because generally performance has always been done originally for the audience, an audience there to witness the performance. Here we have absence of audience. Audience was not there. Audience was up there somehow, mentally, projected and people will follow where we are and which part of the wall, but basically there was not there. So this is why for me it was very important to actually start creating objects, which I never done before. And I call them transitory objects, made with the minerals and different materials, in order to transport my feeling to the audience, and they can kind of get in touch through the transitory objects with the journey. But this is the only performance where audience was not there.
And it did prompt quite a large shift in your work. The works that are going to be shown in Shanghai, which are called The Lovers, which are photographic, colour photographs of you on the wall walking at different spots that you chose very specifically to document. And then you made unique drawings on the bottom of the photographs. Can you talk a little bit about how important those works were for you, as well as this shift to making transitory objects?
So when I came back from the war, I made during my trip more than 3,000 photographs during the trip, and I also some photographs are made by me. Some if I'm in the photo, it was made by the guide, and also the video recordings. So this is material I have with me that I have to deal with to present to the audience. So photographic work was actually based on me walking on the wall, and each photograph was showing different step, different position, different the province that I was walking through. So very much like a document. But in the same time walking the wall, I was writing the diary, I was writing the poetry, and I was also doing wall rubbings. So I was thinking how I can combine this into the artwork. I decided to make original drawings directly from my diaries on each photograph, and sometimes just also the written words.
And actually, the position you talked about, the positions that you would assume on the wall, almost as sort of hierarchic documents, and then you make these drawings. I mean, they're very symbolic in many ways. They refer both to the wall, but they're really about energy and what you were going through on the wall. So they're quite autobiographical, and they inform later bodies of work as well. I'm thinking of the work that you made with Polaroids, where you assume different positions.
Yeah.
And they, I think they're quite important for you in that they do inform a lot of work that comes after it for you.
Yeah, definitely, and because this is actually is a kind of my report to the audience where I went through, and this really unique document because the drawing is so original and they're directly made on the photographic paper.
And the point you make about this is the only performance you ever made where the audience was not there or wasn't allowed access in some way is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So do they in some way become almost like diary entries for you that talk about your experience on the wall and energy that you were experiencing on that walk?
Because really what really was interesting for me during the war, every time we will go to the village after the end of the day when we have to sleep and then go back next day to the wall, I will always ask, who is the oldest man or woman on the wall? And in this area, and sometimes they will find people 120 years old. I have the amazing encounters with lots of people over 100. And then with the translator, I was asked about the legends of the wall. And every time they would talk about legend, about the black dragons, green dragons, about the snakes fighting. And actually, they're all about energies. This all energy line, because the wall is built on the geodetical energy line of the planet. And I start noticing that I walk on different ground, I start feeling different. I walk on the ground which is iron, I feel different than on the copper ground, or different the quartz, different the clay ground, different if it's some other mineral. And this will reflect into the mythology. They will say the green dragon is fighting red dragon. And that was the green dragon is fighting the black dragon. There will be copper and iron. So I start really seeing the planet as a body, and also my body as in relation to the planet. So I will see the quartz as the eyes of the planet, tourmaline as the liver, the copper as a nerve system, the iron as a blood. So I create this kind of body, human body, planet body, bodies. And then I start creating these objects. And these objects reflect actually the planet body. So I will make 3 pillows. And these pillows you have to press your head, your stomach, and your heart and your stomach against it and feel the energy of that material, if it's rose quartz or tourmaline or whatever material I'm using. Or you have to make 3 different body positions that I've been dealing with, which I was dealing also during the war. Walking is standing, sitting, and lying. So I will make for the public these transitory objects. And I call them transitory because I don't see them as a sculpture. I see them as something that you actually get experience out of it. An object can be removed. It's not important anymore. Experience is important. And experiences deal with also with performance.
So it's fair to say that apart from the immediate changes that it wrought in your life, you split with Ulay as a working partner, you split as a couple, but if we look at the next 30 years of your work, the Chinese Wall had a massive impact.
Huge.
On the way that you started to develop different bodies of work and different thinking about different bodies of work.
So I actually switched there very clearly from artist body, artist doing performance in the front of public, to the public body. The public body which actually public is performing and getting direct experience for themselves.
So, 22 years later, jump cut, the performance you made at the Museum of Modern Art.
Yeah.
4.5 months, 750,000 people, where the audience could come and sit with you and communicate with you without language, just sitting, looking at you. How important was your experience on the wall in terms of allowing you to understand that you could accomplish a performance which was even longer, but which was probably the most frontal and engaged performance you have made to date with the public?
You know, the Chinese Wall, first why it was so important for me, it was so a dramatic moment, because it's not just, I always believed till that time that working with as a two people is actually more than working as a one, because you put more ideas together and then you create something which is not egoistic, your own invention, or as egoistically somebody else's invention. It's something we call this third self, or the third energy. And then when Ulay and my work didn't work anymore, our relationship, I was trying to hide this from the public. I could not confront public with the failure, because I was thinking working alone is a failure. And then, in a way, we create this work after the Great Wall of China, which we call this was before the Great Wall of China. We created a work called Night Sea Crossing, which two of us sitting in the front of each other, and the public is watching us as a tableau vivant. So now I come to this most important exhibition of my life, in the moment, the perspective, which I actually decide that the chair where Ulay was sitting is the chair for everybody else. I exchange the Ulay for the public, for others, and become totally different, situation. And this really started coming from the Great Wall, because he left, and his place was empty. His place was empty, and the public took the place.
When you started making performance work at the end of the 60s and the 70s, it's such a different moment. I mean, firstly, you were in Belgrade. And very little access to information about other artists or what was going on in the rest of the world in different media. And also, a very different moment, because artists, in a way, there was no money in the art world. Artists were very free. You didn't have any media, so you started using your own body and you started making performance, I think instinctively, rather than perceiving it as something that you could actually do. And your career has changed how we understand what performance art is capable of, and indeed, with the show at MoMA, came into the mainstream. It's the first time the Museum of Modern Art had ever worked with a performance artist to make an exhibition of that type. Where do you see performance going now in the future, and what advice would you give to young artists who are working in the medium?
Performance made such a huge change. I always believe the performance for me is like a phoenix, always kind of go away and come back out of his own ashes, and stronger and more vital. It's such a difficult form of art, because performance is time-based art and is immaterial form of art. So it's not something that you can, put the nail on the wall, you put the painting and the next day is there. You have to be there, present physically, in order to perceive it. And after performance is finished, all what is left is a memory. So it's a very soft kind of software, to deal with that. And but in the performance have vitality that any other form of art doesn't have. And because it's so difficult, and because it somehow still never actually die. And every time, if you see in society, economical crisis comes, performers come up. Every time the market gets strong in art, the performers die. It somehow is connected, almost like barometer, because performance doesn't cost as much and never become commodity as other visual arts, ever. And I think that which is interesting now that become mainstream art. Now we have Tino Segal, we have the Olafur Eliasson doing the public pieces, Matthew Barney. We have, there's so many artists that are looking into this idea of performance, not just a performance, but also interactive video installations, and then the music scene, and then the video, and then the film, and the theater, taking elements of performances and adapting. So it's such a large scale of performance using it in this moment, and there is a big future for performance. And the young artists should never have disappeared, because if young artists want to be famous and rich, they should never do performance.
Why do you think that the first generation of artists working in performance in the 70s particularly, there were so many women? I mean, nearly a very high percentage of the pioneers of your generation were women. Why do you think that is?
I never thought about it, but it's very true. You see, why the women? I really think that the women have much stronger relation to the body than the men. Just the physical effect that women can give birth and have this incredible spiritual and tremendously strong the experience through the body. It actually leads to this point that actually they're easy for them to use the body than the men.
Do you think in some way that they're stronger? Because it requires enormous physical stamina.
It's no good doubt. The men, they never can compete with the strengths of the woman, because it's, you know, just the idea that women can actually conceive life. It's such a power that that women should get used to that power, in order and not avoiding.
Your career has consistently and notably pushed the boundaries, both for yourself physically, emotionally, but also of the media. What's next? What are the new frontiers for you in the work?
You know, right now I'm busy with this opera that is interesting, that to kind of do something that I never done before, not only directing opera but also playing, and it's called Seven Deaths, and it really deals with the dying of the woman in opera. In every opera, women die, for sacrifice, for family, for a heartbreak, for a love, for the whatever. So I'm only showing these elements of dying. And when I finish these elements of dying with opera, my new thing is really something that I'm interested in producing new work. And the title of the show in Royal Academy, which I'm working on for the next year. So I was thinking what would be my next show after Seven Deaths. It's very simple.
Seven Resurrections.
No, Afterlife.
Afterlife.
It's called Afterlife.
One last question about performance. In an almost 5-decade career, has your work as a performance artist and your life, have those two things blurred? Have they become the same thing? Is there a division for you, or is it all the same thing now? It's seamless.
You know, in different periods of life meant different things. When I started in ex-Yugoslavia, my life in ex-Yugoslavia was so different than my performance work. And it was just almost opposite. In very strict patriarchal family I've been born, and I have to really follow the rules, very strict rules. And at the same time I abandoned all the rules, and I done performances that my family complete freak out, naked, cutting communist star on the stomach and burning, that was something not what they educate me. And then I arrived Ulay in my life, and we work and live together, and then become one. The life and the art was one thing. It was no separation at all. And now it's again separated. Now I become such a kind of media figure, and reaching really much larger audience than I ever reached in my life. Before, a performance was 6-7 friends was okay, 30 people was big crowd. But now if I have 3,000 or 4,000 people, and hundreds of thousands coming to see the show, it's a huge crowd. So that now I really need more privacy. I need seclusion of the private life and to divide it from
So as the internet, there was no internet when you did the work.
No.
There was no email, there was no cell phones. So now, more than 30 years later, when all of those things are absolutely part of the fabric of our lives and pervasive, you feel that it's important for you and for your work that you actually have a private space.
More than ever before. I never need that private space before as I need now.
Yeah, because in many respects you can look at the first 3 decades of your career, and it's you could classify it as looking for an audience, and then you've got an enormous audience,
and now
you need some privacy
exactly.
from how pervasive the internet and ubiquitous access to an artist has become.
Yeah.
So now you need more privacy than ever, perhaps.
Absolutely more privacy.
And as a performance artist, perhaps that's a very important metaphor, and not a bad place for us to finish talking about the lovers. This is going to be shown during the presentation of the lovers, the complete set of lovers photographs in Shanghai for Photo Shanghai. It'll be the first time it's ever been seen in totality in China. And I wonder, is there anything particular that you'd like to say to the audience seeing all of them together for the first time in China, in the country that they were made?
China went through such a huge change, political, economical, spiritual, in every possible way. And we made the Great Wall of China walk in the time when China was a different thing. And now we are showing it in China as a free country. And I think it's, for me, extremely important to see it in this light, because it was made in the time that actually the dream walking Great Wall of China was almost reaching impossible. But I only wanted to say that actually impossible became possible, and this is the way that Chinese could see this as a result.
We had a number of questions from people over social media for you. We've dealt with it, we've covered a lot of that territory, but there's one question that I think is that we probably haven't touched upon. And somebody asked, many of your works are challenging the limits of the body and your spirit. As a performance artist, do you have to accept whatever results come out? Because in many respects, you set up a scenario and you kind of anticipate what may come out of it, but you never quite know. So do you automatically accept whatever comes out of the performance or that occurs during it?
It's very important to say, actually, the statement, many different artists have different statements of what performance is. My statement of what performance is, it's a mental and physical construction made in a specific time, in a specific place, in the front of the public, and then energy dialogue can happen. So in that specific mental and physical construction, whatever happened in that time, I expect accepting it as a work. So if electricity stopped, earthquake came, somebody in the audience come and do something, it's a part of the piece. But I set up that mental and physical construction in particular time, so only from that particular time is possible. Everything beyond that is not the work.
Marina, it's a perfect place to finish. Thank you so much, and it was fascinating to hear you talking about the lovers and this particular body of work that's so important that's going to be shown in Shanghai in September for the first time. Thank you.